Florence, spring, 1348. The fairest of Italy's fair cities is very quiet. The doors are closed, the windows are shuttered. The only life we can see is a scrawny dog picking his way, hopefully, for scraps among what, last week, was a busy marketplace. The plague has come to that town. The politicians are very busy. They have barricaded the city, they have shut its doors, and they've refused entrance to the sick. The doctors are very busy. They have holed themselves up and written lots of prescriptions for the preservation of health. And behind all of these closed doors, other sorts of unofficial advice thrums through the town. The priests are very busy. Bells chime, incense burns on every altar, and each hour prayers fly, light as souls, flittering their way up to the heavens. But none of it is working. Plague still stalks the city. He comes in the form of a man, young, scrawny. He first touched the earth in the east, where he took countless lives before he stalked his way west, consuming city after city. He wears on his feet leather shoes that have been worn to nothing at the soles with the length of his tireless journey. And he wears a great grey cloak, fine as gossamer, that spins out in all directions, threads unravelling. And whenever that cloak touches the ground, the signs of pestilence appear. Tumours, the size of eggs, the size of apples, spring up in groins and armpits. Black marks under the skin, ink blossoming through the veins as death signs each victim as his own. And just as the fire that will consume things dry and greasy when they're put slightly too close to it, so the pestilence springs from the sick to the well. Signs just blossom. Illness blossoms out of nothing, as though the devil himself has worked out how to perform miracles. Citizen avoids citizen. Friends no longer break bread together. And those that are young in the morning find that by the time the evening comes, they are due to dine with their forefathers in that other world. And so it happens that one fine spring day, 7 women gather in the church to pray together for the dead. They carry with them pockets full of posies, sweet-smelling herbs, smells that they hope will stand between them and illness. And all 7 of these women are great friends. They have loved each other since they started to first spin sentences. The oldest of these friends is called Pampanea, and she looks around her sisters. She sees the worry and care on each of their brows. And she fears hearing the swoosh of Plague's cloak behind them as they enter the church. And she fears that next time they meet here, there will only be 6 of them, then 5, then 4. And she is not having any of it. Sisters, she says, let's not stay here and wait to die. Look, let's get all our belongings and go together to my villa in the countryside. There at least we will be able to hear birdsong, and there we can see the great fields of undulating corn, soft as the sea. And there we'll be surrounded by 100 types of tree, and we can keep heaven always in our sight. The other friends immediately agree with this plan. But then the second eldest, Philomena, raises a small problem. Friends, she says, sisters, we are all women. We are by nature inconstant and volatile and quarrelsome. How on earth are we going to do without a man's guidance? Poor Philomena. It's not her fault that she was written by Boccaccio, a man who thought it was perfectly okay to write a really misogynist prologue to the Decameron and then write a few lines apologising to his female readers. The other friends roll their eyes. They're very fond of Philomena, but, well, they rather wish she wouldn't spend quite so much time reading medieval conduct literature. The youngest, Elisa, embraces her friend. Where, she says, are we going to find men to accompany us? As if on cue, 3 gallants come in through the church door. They are handsome, they are muscular, they are debonair, and most importantly of all, they are discreet. 3 of them are lovers of 3 of those women, and as soon as they see them, blushes rise in their cheeks. They are hardy, brave men, more suited to a courtly love narrative than these dark times of plague. It takes surprisingly little convincing for these 3 men to agree to go to a nice villa in the countryside with 7 beautiful ladies. And so it happens that all of them go home, collect their belongings, and leave Florence to plague's piteous dance. The villa is on a little green hill, a couple of miles north of Florence. And it's all winding corridors opening out into great courtyards full of orange and lemons, and the smell, wherever you go, is just beautiful. And around that villa, they have a network of walled, enclosed gardens full of roses and sweet-smelling herbs. And beyond that are the water meadows, lush and fresh, full of dappled light and shade. And most importantly of all, the villa has a very well-stocked wine cellar and an excellent range of books in the library. And I hope that those of you who are listening at home also have access to a very well-stocked wine cellar and a good range of books in your library. And they live well for a day or 2, but soon Pampanea starts to notice the worry lines appear on her friends' faces again. She knows that this villa, with all of its pleasures, are not enough to block out the darkness that they've left at home. So she knows she needs to divert their minds somehow from death and pain. And so she calls on 3 of the things likely to keep soul, body and mind together: music, story and song. Friends, she says, there are 10 of us here. Wouldn't it be a good idea if every day for 10 days, each one of us tells a story before the sun has set? 10 days of 10 stories, 100 messages of hope and solidarity. The friends readily agree to this, and they rush into the herb garden and come back bearing bay leaves to crown Pampanea queen of their first day of telling. And that day, after the sun has passed his highest point in the sky, and things start to feel a little more cool and the shadows start to lengthen, all of them go to the water meadows, where they sit on the edge of the lush grass. And Pampanea sits tall among them, and opens her mouth and takes a deep breath to begin her first story. And as she takes that breath, the birds around hush in their singing just a little. And as she takes that first breath, the rest of the world around them just blurs slightly at the edges. And as she takes that first breath, plague, stalking the streets in Florence, pauses for just a fraction of a second to listen.